Hello again, and welcome to the second episode of our Dissecting Shakespeare, Dissecting King Lear. Today we will be doing Act 1, Scene 2 of King Lear, which is in the Earl of Gloucester's castle. And I have some old players that you've seen before and some new ones. Again, my name is Jackie from Sejaki in the Washington, D.C. area. Actor, director, playwright, all kinds of things. And I have with me, next I'll pass it to Miranda.
Hello, I'm Miranda. I'm in the Las Vegas area and I love Shakespeare. And I'll pass it over to Henry.
Oh, hello, I'm Henry. I'm in Venice, LA, and I love Shakespeare too. Can't get enough, actually.
Beautiful.
In
And
fact,
mhm.
in fact, this afternoon, I already, with another small group, did the last scene from Lear and dissected that.
Oh,
So
wild.
it's a Leary day.
I love that.
Yes.
And last but not least, Kathryn.
Hi, I am Kat Wilson out of Gig Harbor, Washington, near Seattle. Pronouns are she, her, and I won't be reading a character today, but I'll be sitting around here listening and going to join you in for the dissection. And I read Shakespeare periodically.
Excellent. And if you've seen our first episode, you already know how this works. If you haven't, we're going to act out this scene and then we're going to talk about it. We're going to dissect it. So, again, this is Act 1, Scene 2, the Earl of Gloucester's castle.
There's some music coming from somewhere. Is that me?
No, it's me.
Oh, it's intentional.
Yes.
Okay.
Act 1, Scene 2, the Earl of Gloucester's castle. Enter Edmund with a letter. Thou, nature, art my goddess. To thy law my services are bound. Wherefore should I stand in the plague of custom and permit the curiosity of nations to deprive me, for that I am some 12 or 14 moonshines lag of a brother? Why bastard? Wherefore base? When my dimensions are as well compact, my mind as generous, and my shape as true as honest madam's issue? Why brand they us with the base, with baseness, bastardy base, base? Who, in the lusty stealth of nature, take more composition and fierce quality than doth within a dull, stale, tired bed, go to the creating a whole tribe of fops, got tween asleep and wake? Well then, legitimate Edgar, I must have your land. Our father's love is to the bastard Edmund as to the legitimate. Fine word. Legitimate. Well, my legitimate, if this letter speed and my invention thrive, Edmund the base shall top the legitimate. I grow, I prosper. Now God stand up for bastards!
Oh, Kent banished thus, and France in choler parted, and the king gone tonight, subscribed his power, confined to exhibition. All this done upon the gad. Edmund, how now? What news?
So please your lordship none.
Why so earnestly seek you to put up that letter?
I know no news, my lord.
What paper were you reading?
Nothing, my lord.
No. What needed then that terrible dispatch of it into your pocket? The quality of nothing hath not such need to hide itself. Let's see, come, if it be nothing, I shall not need spectacles.
I beseech you, sir, pardon me. It is a letter from my brother that I have not all o'er read, and for so much as I have perused, I find it not fit for your o'erlooking.
Give me the letter, sir.
I shall offend, either to detain or give it. The contents, as in part I understand them, are to blame.
Let's see.
I hope, for my brother's justification, he wrote this but as an essay or taste of my virtue.
This policy and reverence of age makes the world bitter to the best of our times, keeps our fortunes from us till our oldness cannot relish them. I begin to find an idle and fond bondage in the oppression of aged tyranny, who sways not as it hath power, but as it is suffered. Come to me, that if this I may speak more. If our father would sleep till I waked him, you should enjoy half his revenue forever, and live the beloved of your brother Edgar. Conspiracy. Sleep till I wake him. You should enjoy half his revenue. My son Edgar, had he a hand to write this, a heart and brain to breathe it in? When came this to you? Who brought it?
It was not brought me, my lord. There's the cunning of it. I found it thrown in at the casement of my closet.
You know the character to be your brother's?
If the matter were good, my lord, I just swear it were his, but in respect of that I would fain think it were not.
It is his.
It is his hand, my lord. But I hope his heart is not in the contents.
Hath he never heretofore sounded you in this business?
Never, my lord, but I have heard him oft maintain it to be fit that sons at perfect age and fathers declining, the father should be as ward to the son, and the son manage his revenue.
Oh, villain! His very opinion in the letter. Abhorrent villain, unnatural, detested, brutish villain. Worse than brutish. Go, sirrah, see. I'll approach him. Abominable villain, where is he?
I do not well know, my lord. If it shall please you to suspend your indignation against my brother till you can derive from him better testimony of his intent, you shall run a certain course, where, if you violently proceed against him, mistaking his purpose, it would make a great gap in your own honor, and shake in pieces the heart of his obedience. I dare pawn down my life for him, that he hath wrote this to feel my affection to your honor, and to no further pretense of danger.
Think you so?
If your honor judge it meet, I will place you where you shall hear us confer of this, and by an auricular assurance have your satisfaction, and that without any further delay than this very evening.
Cannot be such a monster.
Nor is not sure.
To his father that so tenderly and entirely loves him. Edmund, seek him out. Wind me into him. I pray you, frame the business after your own wisdom. I would unstate myself to be in a due resolution.
I will seek him, sir, presently. Convey the business as I shall find means, and acquaint you withal.
These late eclipses in the sun and moon portend no good to us. Though the wisdom of nature can reason it thus and thus, yet nature finds itself scourged by the sequent effects. Love cools, friendship falls off, brothers divide, in cities mutinies, in countries discord, in palaces treason, and the bond cracked twixt son and father. This villain of mine comes under the prediction. There's son against father. The king falls from bias of nature. There's father against child. We have seen the best of our time. Machinations, hollowness, treachery, and all ruinous disorders follow us disquietly to our graves. Find out this villain, Edmund. It shall lose thee nothing. Do it carefully. And the noble and true-hearted Kent, banished, his offence, honesty. 'Tis strange.
This is the excellent foppery of the world, that when we are sick in fortune, Often, the surfeit of our own behavior, we make guilty of our disasters the sun, the moon, and the stars, as if we were villains by necessity, fools by heavenly compulsion, by spherical knaves, thieves, and treachers by spherical predominance, drunkards, liars, and adulterers by an enforced obedience of planetary influence, and all that we are evil in by a divine thrusting on an admirable evasion of whoremaster's man to lay his goatish disposition to the charge of a star. My father, compounded with my mother under the dragon still, and my nativity was under Ursa Major, so that it follows I am rough and lecherous. Tut. I should have been that I am had the maidenliest star in the firmament twinkled on my bastardizing. Edgar. And Patty comes like the catastrophe of the old comedy. My cue is villainous melancholy, with a sigh like Tom o' Bedlam. Oh, these eclipses do portend these divisions. Fa, sol, la, mi.
Ah, how now, Brother Edmund? What serious contemplation are you in?
I am thinking, brother, of a prediction I read this other day, what should follow these eclipses.
Do you busy yourself about that?
I promise you, the effects he writes of succeed unhappily, as of unnaturalness between the child and the parent. Death, dearth, disillusions of ancient amities, divisions in state, menaces, and maledictions against king and nobles, needless diffidences, banishment of friends, dissipation of cohorts, nuptial breaches, and I know not what.
Well, how long have you been a sectarian astronomical?
Come. When saw you my father last?
Oh, the night gone by.
Spake you with him?
Aye, 2 hours together?
Parted you in good terms? Found you no displeasure in him by word or countenance?
None at all.
Bethink yourself, wherein you may have offended him, and at my entreaty forbear his presence till some little time have qualified the heat of his displeasure, which at this instant so rageth in him, that with the mischief of your person it would scarcely allay.
Some villain hath done me wrong.
That's my fear. I pray you, have a continent forbearance till the spide of his rage go slower, and as I say, retire with me to my lodging, from whence I will fitly bring you to hear my lord speak. Pray ye go! There's my key. If you do stir abroad, go armed.
Armed, brother!
Brother, I advise you to the best, go armed! I am no honest man, if there be any good meaning towards you. I've told you what I've seen and heard, but faintly, nothing like the image and horror of it. Pray you away!
Well, shall I hear from you anon?
I do serve you in this business. A credulous father, and a brother noble, whose nature is so far from doing harms that he suspects none, on whose foolish honesty my practices ride easy. I see the business. Let me, if not by birth, have lands by wit, all with me's meet that I can fashion fit. Beautiful! And that was Act 1, Scene 2 of King Lear. And now, let's dissect it. Let's talk about it. So, what exactly happened in this scene? What is going on? Anyone wants to go right into it?
Well, yes, obviously Edmund is using. I mean, all the characters come up. I mean, it's kind of lighted Edmund's hatred and jealousy and resentment and all that stuff, and I guess it's so interesting, isn't it, that they're talking about the stars, and I mean the what's going on in the firmament.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, I hadn't really noticed that before in Lear, and it's just very important. It explains why everybody is being brought to a peak of their stuff, whatever their stuff is. Everybody's in it. Everybody's jousting, and it's making it more. Not Edgar, I guess, but Ed, Edgar's a different sort of personality altogether, really, isn't he?
Mm. Yes. Yes, Edgar
100%.
is very trusting, it's interesting also that he doesn't, I don't know if it's stupidity or just ignorance for Edgar to not understand where Edmund is coming from in terms of the relationship with Gloucester. And that's where, in the scene, I'm always baffled because I'm like, what is their relationship? Do you really trust Edmund that much? Have you not seen how Gloucester has treated you versus Edmund? And like to make you, at least kind of think, should I trust Edgar or should I just go straight up to my father, Gloucester, and talk to him? Because I imagine Gloucester and Edgar are quite close and can really talk to each other. And so, yeah, it always baffles me that he takes Edmund and his word so easily.
It's so interesting too because I feel like we were just talking about like the sisters last week, and I feel like Cordelia wouldn't take her sister's word of. I mean, Cordelia, she looks at them and she's like, "Well, I'd like to believe you, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
see." She's got a very different sort of relationship with her sisters, whereas Edgar's just like, I mean, he's a little skeptical. I mean, he think when he's hearing the whole Alma talk and the stars talk, he's like, well, I don't know about that. But yeah, as soon as it's, you're in danger, go, go, go. It's like, oh, okay.
Right. Like, okay, I'll go.
Yeah.
But there again, I mean, what you just pointed out about Cordelia too. Um, you know, what Edgar and Cordelia are both the favourites, and also are totally. They have everything they want. They can have everything they want. They can have more than they want, and so they've lived in this bubble of this is how life is. Everything's absolutely fine, and everybody loves me, and all that sort of thing. And I mean, in the end, it comes down to love, doesn't it? I mean, if you feel you're not loved, um, you have to do something to 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 um, to go about getting it, and that's either by kind of pleasing people or by doing what Edmund's doing, and or the girls as well. Gonald Reagan. Just kind of machinating. But yes, the Edgar Cordelia link is very important, isn't it?
It is. And I
It's
think it's
true.
brilliant how Shakespeare has set up this play with he starts, right, with the king with the girls, and then
Yeah,
he goes with the earl and his boys. And we
that's
see,
right.
like you said, the juxtaposition of like the favorite's downfall in both scenes and
Yeah.
like how and I wonder if the moral of the story is like being a favorite can't always save you. I don't know what is the moral of the tale?
Well, I think you can take a look at Edmund's first three lines: "Thou nature art my goddess; to thy
Mhm.
law my services are bound."
Yeah.
And wherefore should I stand in the plague of custom and permit the curiosities of nations to deprive me? Right? He says that he's talking about nature and natural law,
Mhm.
and if you keep in mind, in this time in England, I mean, it was very very common belief that there was an order of things. God is at the top, then the king, then the higher nobles, and the lesser nobles, and then the knights, and then eventually get down to the serfs and the peasants.
Mm.
Or if you want to take the religious route, you go from God, to the Pope, and then so on and so forth, at least before England became Protestant. But the whole idea that anyone rebel against this established order is inconceivable. And
Mm.
so maybe that's why Edgar can't see that his brother is upset, because since he isn't legitimate,
Mm.
he's he's not going to be able to get any legitimacy because it's unnatural in their minds. And that's the very first thing Shakespeare mentions here. Thou nature art my goddess. To thy
Mm-hmm.
law my services are bound. So that might be why no one else can see it. We can see it because, Edmund is telling us, the audience, what he's going to be doing, but the other characters can't see it.
Yeah. No, it's just a question of like backstory too, you know?
Hmm.
Shakespeare doesn't, well, he doesn't have the time to really go into like, this is what the relationship has been. And this is where, and that's why I always just wonder because Edmund is always portrayed in such a villainous way in many ways that I'm like, wouldn't Edgar peep that? I'm just saying, or Gloucester. Like, wouldn't they peep the villainy? So I think it doesn't work unless Edmund has like some charm about him and the villainy is like creeping in or something and is not so blatant. Um,
Yeah.
especially in that first scene with him.
Yeah, like you know what that suddenly made me think of is that like earlier you were also talking about people pleasing, Jackie, right? Like
Mhm.
that there's something maybe going on about these disfavored children,
Mm,
um, where I mean, because they don't have the necessarily as much of a guarantee that they're going to get status. They're not the favorites. And so they're having to rely more on people pleasing, but that's also shading into trickery, right?
mm,
And so then the line between um, to what extent am I just trying to please the parent, and to what extent is my flattery shading into villainy is something that's sort of happening with both those disfavored kids, and then the honest ones who are perhaps too honest for their own good.
mm.
Edgar and Cordelia. Yeah, interesting.
I also
Well,
think like, I'm sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
no, I was going to say, I mean, when you say people pleasing, but it shading into villainy, I mean, I don't think they think themselves as villains at all.
No.
They're just doing what they need to do. I still think it always comes back to love, to be loved, as it were, and accepted, and all those other things that come with love, and um, and so that's what they have to do to sense that they're being loved. And some people would just go with the people pleasing. I, I
Mm,
guess I guess as kids they could do that, and then when they realise that it doesn't make any difference, that then it turns more resentful, and as they get older in life, perhaps um, still about love.
yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the at the crux of it all, it's always, people just want to be feel heard and seen and loved. And I also think it's about jealousy. I feel like in both cases with Edmund as well as with Goneril and Regan, I think the jealousy of like not being the favorite also has seeped into them and tainted the relationship that they have with each other. And I know jealousy can make you do crazy things. I mean, we see it in life all the time.
Yeah,
So interesting.
absolutely.
It makes me think of there's a kind of like we've kind of got one hierarchy of love and affection and the connections, and then like Kat was got this other hierarchy that's the kind of hierarchy of rank, right?
Mm,
Like the great chain of being, and this is where your place is supposed to be, and the king is supposed you owe your allegiance to the king, you owe your allegiance to the father. You if you untune that string and you take degree away, is a line from I think Ulysses says that in Troilus and Cressida has like, oh take but degree away, untune that string and hark what discord follows. And then one of the things, and he's imagining the world tearing itself to pieces and the rude sun striking his head, and everything crumbling as soon as you take away that kind of fixed hierarchy. So we have like the fixed hierarchy that's supposed to keep things in place, and then the that are supposed to keep things in place. And in this play, they're both sort of in doubt.
And Edmund wants to flip that. He wants to make the base legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
As I say, that's still in the same first paragraph that he speaks too. Fine word, legitimate. He really wants to flip that. That was the phrase I was looking for, Miranda. The great chain of being. I couldn't recall it in my head, but yeah, he definitely, and he wants to flip it,
Mm-hmm.
and he has to use charm to do it because he doesn't have law on his side. So I think he's been practicing charm ever since he realized. It doesn't say so anywhere. Again, you have to kind of infer what his character might have been before the play opened. But um, everyone believes him, and you can't get to be a consummate liar, I think, unless you've had a lot of practice. People who are honest are really terrible at it.
Yeah. Oh. And I really do love the juxtaposition of also, the in the daughters, like having the youngest, right? Who usually, if we're talking about order, it would be the oldest, right? Who would have the favor of, the parents. And here in the first scene, it's the youngest who has the favor of the king, which is, very odd in the terms of like what is custom, what is nature. And then here on the opposite end, where Gloucester obviously favors the legitimate son Edgar over Edmund the bastard, and Edmund trying to flip that. Yeah, it's fascinating.
I know in life, I think the youngest of several kids is quite often the favourite of the father.
Mm,
Well, you think about fairy tales, it's
Really?
always the third. If they have three kids, right? That's always the third one that gets the kingdom in the end, in all the old fairy tales.
Yes,
interesting.
you're right. Yeah.
I didn't
Um,
even notice.
do we know whether Edmund or Edgar is the elder? Do we know the
It
ages?
I
says
think
something in here.
Edgar.
For I am some 12 or 14 moonshines lag of a brother. I'm assuming that means he was born
Ah,
12 or 14 moons after.
That's
yeah,
what I thought. I always thought
yeah.
Edmund was the younger brother, when Edgar was the older. That's how it's usually portrayed, anyways. Yeah.
But then in the theme of the whole play, that what, how does this reflect the theme of the whole play? What we're talking about now about
It sets
return.
up. It sets up a lot of the themes of this play, and
Yeah.
it sets up, what will ultimately happen by the end of this play, which we will not talk about. There's no spoilers. We're dissecting scene by scene, but yeah, I think these are two scenes that definitely sets up the relationships in this play with the major players, and right from the jump, like they go strong hard with scene one is King Lear and his three daughters and Kent real fast, and then this one Gloucester with his two sons, like they're like, let's get rid of them, let's go. Real. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like who owes loyalty to whom, you
Mhm.
know, who's higher up, and who obviously if you're higher, you should be the one that is supposed to be more respected and deserves the loyalty. But this is going to get flipped up, I think, quite a bit.
Absolutely.
How
Absolutely.
do you divide power? Like who gets to decide, and can that person actually impose what they want,
Mm,
right? How can you disrupt? If you've got these old men who are handing down, or imagining that they're going to be handing down these inheritances of power, then how do they do that, and how can the people um, receiving that power manipulate, influence, change
mm,
what's happening?
Well, this play takes place. I mean, if this was not when it was written, but with the setting in this play takes
mhm,
place in a time when you didn't have a set way of passing power down yet. You could go from when we think about kings always passing it to the oldest son, but that doesn't happen till later. I mean, there's plenty of other ways to divide kingdoms up before we get to that sort of stage. And I think this is early enough in England's history that it's still, you get to decide who gets what. Often with disastrous results, granted.
Right. Excellent. Wow. Any last thoughts?
Oh, I was also really struck with the language in this play, particularly how Edmund could say exactly the truth while committing, the biggest, hugest lie possible. It's like he'll say when Gloucester's asking for the letter, right? He says, Edmund says, "Well, I shall offend either to detain or give it." I mean, if I give it to you, I'm going to offend someone. If I don't give it to you, I'm going to offend someone,
Which
and
is
that's
good.
true.
Mhm.
He's not lying.
Yeah.
Or if the matter were good, my lord, I would durst swear it were his. But of course, the matter isn't good, so he doesn't have to swear that it's his.
Right.
So lots of telling the truth while setting up his lie. I love it.
Totally agree. And that reminds me, we didn't even talk about like what exactly happens in this scene. Yeah, what had happened was Edmund wants to, inherit all of the things. And so he writes a letter saying that it's Edgar who wrote this letter, saying, terrible things about their dad, Gloucester, and then gives it to Gloucester and tells him that Edgar wrote it and that Edgar wants to get rid of him. Basically, be like, you're old now. It's my time to shine. It's my time to take over the kingdom. Like, we need to let old daddy go to the nursing home. And Gloucester is not happy with this fact at all. And then Edmund is like, don't worry, I'll talk to him. Like, we'll figure it out. And Edgar comes and he tells Edgar, oh, dad is really mad with you. Did you do something badly? Like, you should probably hide. Go hide at my place because he's not in a good mood. And I will let you know when he's in a better mood. But he's really in a terrible, terrible, terrible mood. You don't want to talk to him right now. And that's how that ends.
And make sure you're armed.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And it is also like, exactly, yeah. So to show how, this is serious. That is not just mad. He's like in a rage mad. He may strike you mad. I just like am baffled by how Edgar is like, why? Like he's not like questioning, like, no, I need to talk to dad to figure out why. You have such a close relationship with your dad. Like, Edgar kills me sometimes. How naive he is in this. He kills me.
Just like brother.
Oh, it's
Maybe
okay.
he wasn't raised right. I mean, in terms of like, if he's raised to succeed, Gloucester, right? He should be learning the craft of state and all the guile that goes with it.
Yeah.
And yet it doesn't seem like he's been paying much attention, And apparently Gloucester doesn't know enough to teach it to him because he
Right.
doesn't notice the deceit either. So I have a hard time imagining that everyone is really normally honest in this day and age in the play. So yeah, I can see where you're baffled. But yeah. When you think of the Game of Thrones, right? Now the
Yep.
kings fighting each other. It does not seem like that it's going on here. So, except with Edmund, who's apparently quite clever at it. I love
Indeed.
his last line. Let me, if not by birth, have lands by wit. All's with me's meet that I can fashion fit. So I can't get it legitimately, but we're gonna cheat it out of him.
He has the best lines in this
He
scene.
has
Like,
some great
Edmund
lines.
has bars upon bars upon bars in this scene. That's why I love Edmund so much. I'm like, man, your bastard monologue, your fasolami. I'm like, come on, get it, Edmund. I can't help but like cheer for him.
It's very exciting to hear him talk, to experience his passion.
Yes.
It's very exciting. But another thing about it is interesting to me is that in some ways Edmund is more interested in bringing people down than what he gets. Really, I mean, I
Mm.
don't think he's particularly interested. I mean, he's got all he needs, really, doesn't he? I mean, he's not suffering, but it's just bringing people down is the real passion.
You think so?
Don't you think? Yeah,
I
well, that's how he
don't
comes.
know.
But might not be.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess maybe, but when I've played him, I never like go that route. Like it's not about. I mean, it is delicious to see Edgar fall, but at the same time, it's about. I feel like the self-talk is for years and years and years and years, everybody is always telling me, "Oh, you're the bastard," or "You're not worthy," or "You're not will won't amount to anything. You won't get anything. You won't like." That's the story that's being repeated over and over and over again to Edmund, so that like he believed it for a while, but now he's like, no, why do I have to believe it? Why do I have to be the illegitimate? Why do I have to be treated like a second class citizen? Like I'm smarter than Edmund. I'm better than Edmund. I mean Edgar. I'm all of the things like and Gloucester obviously trusts me. He introduced me to Kent, and brought me to the court. Like, so why couldn't I have what Edgar has?
Yes, maybe
I
you're right.
will.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I think. And I also feel like, again, based on this scene, like we were talking about how Edgar is so like I am baffled by Edgar. I feel like Edmund is legitimately the smarter of the two. Like in terms of ruling, I think he would do a way better job than Edgar would.
100%.
No,
You know,
Edgar wouldn't be much good at ruling at all. No.
Right?
Yeah. So it's a good thing. What's happening is a good thing.
I'm not saying it's necessarily a good thing. I'm just like, if we're talking logistics, I'm Team Edmund for being the one to like keep the dynasty going for Gloucester.
But then I'm thinking about yes. Then I'm thinking about well, I mean, you don't want to talk about what happens in the future, but then
Not
you
yet.
know, but the way that Edgar goes is as if he were completely simple-minded,
Hmm.
as if he were.
Yeah.
it
No, he
makes me think,
So
surprises
he
us.
kind of uses that. He uses that for his
Hmm.
own.
1,000%. No,
Interesting.
that's the beauty of this play, right? It's like don't ever take things at face value,
Yeah.
and don't ever think like people are as simple as they seem, because they're not. And I think that's why people love this play so much. And it's so easy to play, I think, certain characters as one-dimensional and simple-minded. I think Edmund is one of those. I think Goneril is there's a for me, it's a sin. How often I've seen Goneril and Regan as, the evil stepsisters, like really caricatures. And I'm like, they're not that simple.
No,
They can't
absolutely.
be. They can't be. And if you do it that way, you do a disservice to the story, in my mind.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
everybody's got their own story.
Hmm. That's what I love. Yeah.
But I do see Henry's point too about how Edmund does like to look down on people
Oh
because
yeah. Oh
he
yeah.
talks about, how they blame everything that goes wrong for them
Hmm.
on the stars, and that's really foolish thing to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can see some justification for enjoying seeing other people fall because you're making them out to be the fools that you think that they are. At least Edmund is. Oops. So.
No, I totally agree. And it's also that symptom of sometimes when you're so smart, you look down on people because you're like, oh, they're all so dumb. And I feel like Edmund is definitely that type, you know?
Mhm. He's very
Abs-
proud of his wit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's wild, right? Because I think he's the first. I don't think there were any soliloquies in that first scene. So he's the first person where we're really seeing inside his head, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's talking to the audience. He's got a lot of witty things to say. He's got a plan, right? Like we were talking about how like Edgar's a little hard to read. Cordelia's a little hard to read. Like those aren't characters that are really good at expressing themselves,
Mm.
right? Edmund's great at expressing himself. He's fun to watch,
Yeah,
right?
it's like, this is me. Here are my thoughts. Bam.
Oh, I just thought of something else.
Mhm.
When you again talking about so Cordelia, when Cordelia's played as the fool as well,
Mm.
um, which I really like. Um, you know, she becomes the person who's really telling the truth,
Mm.
uh, and uh, Edgar does the same in a way, doesn't he?
Mm.
At the end, he becomes the actual truth teller
Mm.
in the kind of in the fool sort of way.
Mhm.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that before.
That's fascinating. It makes me think of it as a play that's kind of testing truth versus guile. Like truth
Mm.
even to the point of stubbornness or simple-mindedness or being, unwilling to play along with ceremonies that might seem very simple, versus guile and all of its cleverness.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Well, thank you all so much. It's
Thank
time for
you.
me to go to bed. But I promise we will continue the series. Act 1, Scene 3, and so on and so forth will come soonish. Keep watching this channel, Sejaki, to keep dissecting Shakespeare and dissecting King Lear with us. I'm loving this. Thank you so much, Miranda, Kat, and Henry, for joining me today. And I hope y'all join me for more parts of this play. And we'll catch you soon. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment below, all of the things, the YouTube thing to say. Dislike this video. Awesome. Thank you. And see you
Thank you,
soon.
Jacqueline. See you soon.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night,
Yeah.
y'all.